Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Roker Report podcast in association with the Sunderland Community Soup Kitchen. It's Gav and we join us during the international break on the back of a couple of draws since we last did a podcast. Most recently the 2-2 draw at Stadium like Coventry City. Lots has gone on, lots is going on as we speak, and things are coming out in the news and in the rumour mill and all the rest of it. So we're going to talk about everything that's going on at the minute and then look ahead slightly to what's to come after the international break. It's been a challenging couple of weeks, I think, but one we've just about got through. And joining me to chat all about it is Chris. Hello, mate.
Hello, mate. How's it got international break again? I mean, we've just had one.
Is this normal? Is this normal?
I don't know if they've changed the calendar because it just seems like we've had one every time. I don't know if it's like this every year, but
We have?
it might just be because we're top of the league and we just don't want like the season to finish it. Like we want to keep on rolling, but it's just who actually likes them. To be fair, actually, I was away with a lad who like takes his lad and he goes with the father-in-law and his lad and all this, and he's like, it's really good Wembley, when it's not that packed and I'm just like, I'm not sure I could enjoy that, and I don't enjoy watching them. Half the time I forget England are playing, and it's just, they've got these gaps in the calendar for international football, and I want to know how many people actually want them.
Well, not many, clearly, because you've seen how many players pull out of the squads
Yeah, exactly.
as well. Senior players have pulled out the England squad. Yeah. It's like not even the players want to be involved.
Exactly. So I mean, what? I just don't get it. I just there's these pointless windows. I mean, maybe you could argue it gives like the domestic players who aren't called up a break, but nobody likes them. Well, I haven't met that many people who go, "Oh yeah, great! I can't wait till international weekend." I haven't met anyone who said that.
Yeah, I was going. You said you haven't met many. I was going to say I don't know anybody
exactly.
who likes international football that much. I mean, even the lads who go home and away, they're probably thinking, bloody hell, been an expensive couple of months, hasn't it? Going to watch England. They were in Finland the other month. I don't even know who they're playing. Yeah. As you said, I genuinely don't actually care. I barely cared when they played the Euros in the summer. And because the football was that shit, it just switched us off for it. I don't know, it might just be me because I'm so committed and passionate about Sunderland
that might be us.
That I'm really not into it. But like, if you're one of these nerds who watches everything, you might enjoy it. I don't know.
I honestly don't know. I don't know who we're playing. I don't know what we're playing in. I don't know whether they're friendlies. I don't know whether it's Nations League. I don't know whether it's qualifying. I have no interest in it whatsoever.
Yeah. So we've spent a good 3 minutes ranting about international football.
It made me feel better. That's all.
Yeah, I was going to say it's distracting us. It's distracting us from the reality, isn't it? Nah, I'm only kidding. Even though I think I had a pretty clear perspective after the game, as I tend to think I do generally. I think I've got an even clearer one now, just because any
get you.
I put some more air in my own head. No, but I think it would have been very easy to have done what a lot of people did after the game and lose me shit, because when you've got a victory against Coventry, who we never beat, right in the palm of your hand, and it's there and you can see it coming. The 3 points are at the end of the road and then it's taken away from you the way it was. I can understand why people get frustrated, but I actually think this is a time to really reflect and look at this, not just this result, but the way we've started the season as a whole, and look at things with a bit of perspective, because some of the things I've seen and some of the things I've heard on the radio, I do wonder, whether people realise just how well we've started, because I know it's tough. We don't like drawing games, we don't like losing games, and we haven't lost many this season. But as we sit here, we're in a very good position, and I know we're often accused of being overly positive at times, and I'm not being overly positive here. I'm just saying that I think, whilst this was a disappointing result, we were in a good place.
Yeah, I mean, top of the league. I mean, after 15 games. I mean, look, if you always bring it back to that. We didn't expect to be here, but I honestly think in this game, there's a lot to take from it in terms of it almost being a metaphor for where the fans are at the minute. Because, as you said, I mean, a lot of the extreme reaction came from the fact that, and I think you touched on it again at the beginning, that it was so comfortable. I mean, first half and a decent portion of the second half, I mean, it wasn't that far off being the game against Oxford. Mm-hmm. 2-0 up, it was kind of cruising. And then it was, the expectation obviously rises, right? We have to get 3 points here. From 2-0 up, you expect 3 points. Being top of the league, you expect 3 points almost before a ball is kicked. And you get to that position, just almost a subconscious thing. We've won 9 of the 15 games this season. If you're winning almost 2 out of every 3 games, there's an expectation that you're not going to get beat and you're not going to drop points. And that just comes because you're used to getting results. So like I said, this game could be used almost as a metaphor that the frustrations then boil over more than they would if we're mid-table. If we're mid-table, a 2-2 draw like that kind of ends up a bit of a shrug of the shoulders, because it's like, we haven't been winning that many, and we didn't get beat, we avoided defeat. But we got so comfortable in this game, and the players did as well. I mean, clearly the players did. And then when things impact the game, and it becomes that psychology from Coventry's point of view, where they can see that we've been disrupted, the changes we made, the injuries. And you hear so many times ex-players say that 2-0 is such a dodgy scoreline in a game, where the momentum just swings on one incident. All you need is that element of luck. And in the first goal, they got it. They got the bounce off Brown straight into their path. And a good finish, by the way. But once you get that bit of luck, your tails are up. And once we kind of get into that lull, it's hard for teams to pick it back up and get your momentum back up again. It was just that sort of psychology. But like I said, because the expectations now gone through the roof, the frustration was 10 times bigger than it would have been if we weren't in the position in the table.
Yeah, and it was even harder that we conceded a goal and then two players get injured at the exact same moment.
Yeah.
That made a huge difference, because I heard someone rang in the radio and was complaining about the manager's tactics and the fact that he went to three at the back. And I was like, well, I feel sorry for him in a way, because he didn't ask to bring two players off there. They both went down injured at the exact same time. He's thinking on his feet. He's thinking, bloody hell, right, we need to change it. And he had to change something. And it's difficult to try and work. Look, if we get through the game with five at the back as we ended up with, and we win the game, everyone's hailing it as a genius piece of tactical gameplay, and it wasn't. It just didn't come off for us. But I think that, you concede a goal with a big slice of luck there, when it basically Dan Neil makes a tackle, it deflects off Alan Brown into the path of Hadji Wright and puts him in on goal. It's like, friggin' hell. That's one thing. But then to lose two important players on the pitch at the same time and then have to completely change your system to one which naturally invites pressure. As soon as you add an extra defender to the back line, you're saying to the other team, how then, come at us. It's just subconsciously or what, but that's what happens. It made a massive difference to the flow of the game.
I don't think the problem is going five at the back. Your biggest issue is what you do at the top end, because we essentially, by Connolly being up front, I mean, Connolly ended up being kind of a wasted player because he couldn't hold it up. And if we were knocking it up, it was going over his head and it was going straight back to them. So I feel like you need to do, if you're going to go five at the back, you shouldn't accept that when you clear the ball, it's going to come straight back. You need an outlet. And the problem is if you haven't got an outlet and you clear the ball all the time and it comes straight back, from the opposition's point of view, all that time they're building up momentum. So it's wave of attacks. It's attack after attack after attack. They played it wide, they switched the play, and we were watching the play in front of them. Now, I always feel that if you're gonna sit in, you need someone who can either hold the ball up, or you need to put almost your quickest player at that point and just whack it over the top. And then you can get out 10, 20 yards. You can push out a bit. But if you haven't got that and you're just sat on the edge of the box, to me, and I've said that, this has just been my feeling about the way people defend in the last periods of game in general, you're asking for it. Like and if you allow balls to be put into the box as easily as we did for the second goal, like any bounce, any ricochet, anything that it comes off someone's backside, like if you put, you sort of, what was it, position of, I can't remember what somebody used to put.
The position of maximum
That's
opportunity.
it. That was
Pomo.
the one. Pomo, yeah.
It was a Lee Johnsonism, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was it. But yeah, I mean, if you allow teams to do that and put decent balls into the box, like you could be defending really well, but if it bounces the wrong way, there's nothing you can do about it. And we allowed them to do that late on because we sat in. So it was balls around the box. We were playing 1-2s. They were getting crosses in. And if you do that, I just think, like, if you defend, you've got to defend with a plan. I just don't think you can just say, let's sit in and hope for the best.
It's irritating because I think, one, we felt like we had victory right there, and two, it's Coventry. And we're all fully aware of how bad our record is against Coventry. Everyone just wants to get that, everyone just wants to get that win, get it out the way, it's done then. You can get that monkey off your back for the foreseeable future. Every time you cut against them, no one's going to be going, oh, but our record against Coventry shite. So everyone's frustrated, I get it. But I do think that, certainly in the ground anyways, at the end of the game, there was no booing really. It might be the odd one or two.
There's a big
But
sigh.
I know big sigh, yeah. But in seasons gone by, that would have been a mass booing of the team off the pitch. Yeah. So I think the fans in the ground at the end of the game, they were disappointed, but they understood, fucking hell, like, shit happens kind of thing. For the first time doing one of these podcasts during an international break, I think this might actually be well timed for us. Even though it's a disappointing result, I kind of feel like losing players to injury, that means we really do need a period of time to work on something different, because it looks like Romain Mundel's going to be out for up to 2 months. 6 to 8 weeks is what we're hearing. So best case scenario, we're looking at 6 weeks. Worst case, 8 weeks. That's a lot of football. I mean, what's it now? So you're looking at mid-January, maybe start of January. He'll be back for at best. Alan Brown, by all accounts, has broken a bone in his leg. Dennis Serkin's playing with an injured wrist, apparently, and you've seen it all taped up during the game.
Don't know if you remember the British Empire years ago.
Yeah.
There was always a character who always had his hand bandaged up, and but anyway,
it didn't affect him with his goal, like. And then obviously for the Millwall game, we've got Job, we've got Robertson, we've got Hume all suspended. So everything's just happened at the same time. Now we've got to deal with it, right? So that's why I say I think the international break might be well timed, just because we really do have to take stock and then try and work out what we're going to do, because that's a lot of players we're going to be missing.
Yeah, it is. Look, everybody's been talking about how big the squad is. We've been talking about players who've been on the edge of things and haven't getting a chance yet. We've been talking about our signings that we made in the summer that might potentially be getting fit, in the next month or two. There's an element of forward planning. I know people were kind of, what we're signing him for, he's injured. But if you get someone coming back in November, December, it's like you've signed someone during the window. So, there's an element of saying, well, yeah, but he might be injured now, but we know he's going to come back and he's a signing before the window then opens again. And then we know what we need in January. So we're getting these players coming back. We've got probably the biggest squad we've had since we've come up from League One. And we've got these players who we're thinking about going, well, they've waiting for their chance. And now they've got their chance. And if you've got a squad, if you're top of the league, you've got this squad where you've got these players who are itching to play in front of 40,000 fans for a team who's top of the league, potentially getting into the Premier League. Look, in an ideal world, you don't want to pick up these injuries, but that's never going to happen. You're always going to pick up these injuries. It's a bit of a bugger that they're all happening at the same time, and Hume picked up his yellow finally, so he's suspended. But potentially, on a different day, a different ref might have sent him off. I mean, I think it was the right decision. I think it was the right decision of yellow, but you're talking like 2 or 3 out of 10 referees might have sent him off for that. Just instinctively went, well, it's you, and you've dove in. But look, this we've got a squad for this, so let's see how these players come in. They should be chomping at the bit, and if we're going to take anything positive out of it, these players are going to get a chance, so let's see how they get on.
Yeah, I've talked about this before, but it reminds us a little bit about when Tony Mowbray's first season in the Championship, and it was around this time of year, I think, when Trey Hume, Niall Huggins, Ahmad all got the chance. I think it was away at Birmingham, and it was a similar sort of thing. I can't remember, we either had injuries or suspensions or a bit of both, but all of a sudden we needed these players to play, and they turned in a really impressive performance and managed to get the result away at Birmingham, and it was the making of Ahmad and Hume in particular, So, look, these things happen. We've got to deal with it. And you're right, you can't be afraid of having to bring in players, because they're young players and they're eager and they want to play. And I understand some of the reservations, because basically this season we haven't changed a lot. But at the same time, they're here for a reason. Like, look, I know, where did Watson start again? I've already forgot. Preston, was it? Preston away?
Well, yeah. Well, it was a forgettable game, wasn't it? So I'm not surprised I forgot about it.
Yeah, Watson. And look, he didn't have the best of times out on the right-hand side, but he's a talented kid and he's going to get his chance now. Yep. If Mundel's injured for 6 to 8 weeks, well, there you go. There's your perfect replacement. But it's not a big deal.
But it's ideal for him to get a run rather than the odd game.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. Mayenda's back fit, so you'll work him into it somewhere, I would imagine. And, Alexic is probably going to come in for at least one game, I would have thought. Yep. Because by the time we play the game after Millwall, we'll have everybody back. But, Job will be back and then all of a sudden the midfield looks fine. But at Millwall, we're going to have to try and do something a little bit different. And it's not the personnel that worries us necessarily. It's the level of disruption which worries us a little bit. Because I think we felt that at Preston. There was a slight disruption. We had to bring players in because of injuries or suspensions, and we just didn't have that same sort of cohesion through the team. That's the only thing that worries us, but at the same time, I think, well, I want to see these lads play as well. You know, Alexic has been very patient. We haven't seen him really unless he's played for the under-21s. Now's his chance. He's fit. He's been sat on the sidelines for 3 months watching the rest of the team, getting to know his teammates on the training pitch. You know, I would expect my ender to come back in. I would expect that to mean Isidore moves wide, which isn't great because I like Isidore playing through the middle. We've seen what he can do. I mean, that goal, Jesus, we haven't even mentioned it yet, but what a goal. Yeah. And like, it's such a brilliant finisher, what he is, but it's a needs-must situation. I was wondering about what we do, because naturally people will say when we go to Millwall, we've got to move to a back three and we've got to change the system. But I actually think that might be the worst thing we do. I think we should try and stick to the same system, which has worked for us, but just move a few players around, and that might mean putting 09 right back. But I'm interested to see what you think we should do.
Yeah, it kind of depends what, and it's hard. It's a hard one to say because we can just say, just change the formation. You know, easy. You know, it's just dependent on how much they've worked on it. Like if in training we work on our shape and it's always with 4 at the back. Suddenly switching to 3, it might just be the worst thing you can ever do. But if in training that they've been working on different formations and different systems, and they can easily go to that 3, and they know exactly what they're doing and they're comfortable with it. You've heard the manager talk about the flexibility of a lot of these players to be able to, switch where they're playing, and it's down to him to say, well, is Luke 09 just so important in that position that that he would rather play a left-footed right back? Does potentially kind of Yelder come in and play right back? Is that too much? What's going to fit? Does he want to keep people saying, well, you know your positions and you know exactly where to be at any given time? Or is it like, well, you're left-footed, so I don't want to play you on the right? And, it's kind of those decisions that he's got to make. I personally think he'll stick with the same system because the other thing, it's one thing. I think if he's going to switch systems, I think he's going to do it with the players who have played regularly because they've got those partnerships with each other. The other clue I think he's kind of given is what he's enjoying in terms of putting together on our flanks, where the triangles that we've set up on either side. And if you change it to a back 3, then you lose how you actually attack and get up the pitch, because those are our patterns of play where we get those triangles set up, and because the fullback's part of that. And then you've got the winger in front of him and the central midfielder, or the striker comes across and creates one further up the field. So we've got those patterns of play, and you can see that we've worked on. I mean, I've talked on previous pods, closer to the start of the season, where straight away, as soon as you started seeing us this season, you knew that this has been worked on. So I'm finding it hard to believe now that he'll just suddenly go, right, let's go 3 at the back, and we'll find completely new ways of attacking with players who've hardly played from kickoff in the starting 11. So I think we'll see the same system, and I think we'll see players kind of shuffled around to keep the same kind of attacking patterns that we've got.
Do you think, go back to something I just said before, do you think that in mind, do you think the international break is well timed or not? Because then it gives them time to sort of work on it or not? Or would you prefer to play a lot sooner? Well, I know we've whinged about the international break, but I mean for the team, for the manager, for the players who've got to come in, is it better for them that they've got more time to work on this?
Yeah, I'm about to say I love the international break. It's brilliant that it gives us a break, and I don't know, it's a double-edged sword, because after a game like Coventry where you throw away 2 points, they want to get back on and beat someone. They want to take it out on someone.
Yeah,
but you've got the injuries, and now straight away, the players without us playing anything have got 2 weeks knocked off their time out. So you've got that to take into account, where all right, he might miss one of them might miss a month or 2, but they've got that already in their bag, and that they'll be back sooner in terms of how many games they miss. Yeah, it's a tough one. We always talk about, is it a good thing, is it a bad thing for international break? I always think that the players are want to get straight back into it after a game like that. But if you look at our recent run of games and how many we've had away from home, and actually things that we don't think about in terms of the players travelling, and like you're away at the weekend, and then you come back, and then you're away during the week, and then you come back, and then you're straight into Saturday's game. We've had so many games packed into a short period of time, plus a lot of them have been away. I wouldn't be surprised if actually some of the players were thinking, right, brilliant, have a bit of a break, couple of days off. And I think they probably needed a breather, to be honest. I think as fans, we always want to just get back into the next game. But, all right, it might not be a bad thing. But I still hate international breaks.
Yeah, I actually think we'll not talk too much about the next game because there'll be a preview pod at some point. But Job's had a 3-game, 4-week, and he's away with England, isn't he? But short break there, which might actually benefit him long term. So whilst, we'll feel the effect of not having him on the pitch, it might not be such a bad thing with a busy Christmas coming up to have him a little bit more sharp. I'm trying to draw positives from this, but I can see it.
Yeah, there's a bit of clutching at straws going on there, mate, and I can see. But the other side to that is he'd getting into such a good rhythm. That's not the easiest thing to get into, when you're just in the zone. And like every week, he was pretty much the best player on the pitch. The way he was starting to control games, and he was getting better and better. And he was just when a player, and you see it with, especially with strikers, when they're in the zone, they're in, like everything they hits the back of the net. Well, for a midfielder, he was in that zone. He was seeing passes before everyone else from the opposition. He was picking them off. He was positioning himself perfectly. He knew exactly what to do when he received the ball because he was just, he just knew. He was there. He'd getting into that rhythm where every touch he knew what to do next. And if you get out of that, it's not the easiest thing to get back into. And the other thing, like, who's he going to be playing alongside when he comes back? Is Dan Neil still going to be fit? Is Chris Rigg still going to be fit? Because those three had a really good understanding in the middle of the park, and they were kind of just running the show in most games. So, if Job comes back the way he was playing before, I mean, I think he's kind of one of the best players in the Championship at the minute, the way he was playing.
He's starting to get attention for all the right reasons, isn't he? I mean, it's not just the name on the back of the shirt. He's playing well. And he seems to have grown into that. You don't look at him, because he's always been a big lad while he's been here, but he seems to have grown into his frame, hasn't he? Like, he's carrying himself like a big lad around the pitch.
He's getting comfortable.
And he carries himself like a top player.
He knows,
he's getting very comfortable.
Last season, he didn't know what he was. He knows what player he is now.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens when he comes back. So I don't think it's all doom and gloom in terms of the timing of the break and stuff. Like, it's going to present opportunities for new players. Like I said before, it could be the making of one or two of them.
Yeah.
There's others we haven't even mentioned. He might even, we're on about midfield options. He might even give Harrison Jones a chance, who's somebody who's really impressed. I know he's very young, and Millwall away is a big game to be throwing someone like that into, but so is Alexic. Alexic is 18-year-old and never kicked the ball for us, so whoever gets put into that midfield, it's going to be a big game for them. And Watson, he's got to get his chance at some point. He will get his chance now because of the injury to Mundell, so there's going to be chances for him coming up, and he's deserved it.
Well, yeah, it might, I mean, obviously he'd have wanted to do better, but imagine where his head's at now, where he didn't impress when he got the chance, and he's thinking, right, give us another one. And I want to show you what I can do this time. Yeah,
and he's proper position as well eventually. I don't think he'll play, again, I won't get into Millwall too much, but can't imagine he'll play left midfield if he does play. But still, over the coming sort of 6 to 8 weeks, he's going to get chances. Of course he is. Anyways, the season so far, I know I talked at the start, and we might as well sort of finish with this about perspective and stuff, but recent results, 3 draws on the bounce, still top of the league. We're level with Sheffield United. I think there's a 7-point gap between us and the 7th place team. Might be wrong on that, but we've got a bit of a gap. I've always said top 6, I'd still be over the moon. We're at the top of the table now. We might not stay there, but let's look at the season as a whole up to this point. If someone had said to you 3 months ago, we'd be here, you'd been over the moon, wouldn't you?
Oh, it snapped your hand off. I mean, I'd have probably broken someone's arm to take this. I mean, we have to go back to the 28th of September to find the last time we were beaten, and it's kind of mid-November now. Obviously, with the November international break, and we looked at October. I've won 4 out of 5 in October. The only game we didn't win was Leeds, which we drew, which wasn't a bad result at the time. And then 3 draws, but we're not, and we never have since the start of the season. I mean, don't get us wrong, there's been the odd game. Sheffield Wednesday comes to mind, and maybe Oxford, where it's just complete control, and we've kind of not really blown sides away, but clearly just kind of swatted them aside. November's pulled us back in and made us realise kind of how tough the Championship is. I mean, on paper you went, QPR, Preston, Coventry. And I think, again, that comes into the frustration of dropping the 2-goal lead against Coventry. That it kind of adds on to everything else. That the fact that because of the expectation increased, we expected more out of those 3 games. And it says a lot for how we're doing this season. I mean, in seasons gone by in the Championship, we've went, QPR away, we'll have to be kind of on it. Preston, always a tough game. And this season we went there thinking we should win these. And it doesn't quite work out like that. You've got to, sometimes if you get the first goal, then, and we were talking about in some of the reaction to some of these games, like sometimes it's built on moments. And sometimes if you take one of those moments, you go on to win the game comfortably. And you look at the Coventry game, and it was about I'm sure it was kind of 15 minutes to go or something like that. It was 2-1, Coventry's tails were up, and the ball went over the top, and Isidore was running onto it. And I tell you what, if he knocks that the other side of the keeper, or the keeper slid out, he would have been through and on goal, 3-1, and that's a different game after that. So, I mean, it's these moments that completely change games. And like I said, the little ricochet off Brown, we could have just coasted through the rest of that game. And if Coventry hadn't gotten their tails up by getting that lucky break, even though they had a bit of pressure at the time and we were allowing that, which again is something, to be looked at. But again, these games are sometimes built on one single moment or a series of moments in this game, because you think, we came out and we didn't have the same intensity. Then there was the break in play. Then you're talking about all of the injuries and the changes. And then we went 5 at the back, which disrupted our kind of rhythm again. And all these things kind of built up. Then they got the lucky ricochet. And that's it. The game's kind of turned before you even know it. So, look, we got 3 points in November, which I think we were disappointed. 3 points out of 9. I think we probably would have expected probably, let's say, at least 6. I think would have been a fair if we kind of said at the start of November, what do we expect from those 3 games? But QPR and Preston both played like sides where you thought, if you just watched the game and didn't know who we were playing and said, where do you think Preston and QPR are on the league? You'd go, I think they're pushing for playoffs. Good sides, them. But they were down at the bottom for some reason. But whether they picked their game up, because the other thing, we're coming into December now, and then you're going to have the point where we're playing sides for a second time. So there's 2 elements to that. The first being that we're top of the league, and everyone's going to raise their game because they're playing Sunderland, who were top of the league. And the other one is we're easy now to analyse. People have seen us the first time. They know what went wrong the first time. They've seen how we attacked. They've seen us on the counter. Because this new manager, nobody knew anything about our manager coming in from France. What's he going to do? How does he play?
That's a good point, actually, because I think a lot of teams will have watched us play Luton. I think QPR, Preston and Coventry all had very similar game plans after that Luton game. That was the first time I seen someone really... And we won that game, but you saw us bullied for 45 minutes. And from an analysis point of view, you heard Labrie talk about it after the Coventry game. He said that once they started going direct and long, we struggled a little bit with it. And that's not the first time I've heard him say that recently. Yeah. So you're right, teams are working us out a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're talking about being disappointed with the points haul from November. But, we've got to remember that the Championship's tough. And I think second half of the season, it's going to get tougher. And we're going to have these periods where we don't maybe get the points that we expect. But like I said, how many games is it now? 8 unbeaten. We have to go back to beginning of September, or the end of September, sorry, for that defeat at Watford. And look, top of the league still. We've just got to be prepared that these bumps in the road are going to happen. And they're not all. Sometimes the reaction is, we drop a 2-goal lead and we're shit again. It's like we're not shit again. Things happen. It's football. It's things happen in a game. And if you come out of it at the end and you've avoided defeat, you've picked something up and you've been in that position where, all right, we should have won the game. But it's not the end of the world. These things happen and we're going to have these bumps. And there's going to be more of them. When it gets to squeaky bum time at the end, when hopefully we're still up there and we're within a few points of hopefully top 2, it's going to be tight and the pressure's going to be on. And then it's, we've seen seasons in the past where teams have crumbled or teams have puffed their chest out and went, no, this is kind of our time. So you just don't know how it's going to pan out. And, those points, we'll be looking at these points at the end of the season thinking, actually, they weren't bad points in November.
Well, that's what Luke O'Nien said, I think, after QPR, didn't he? He said, sometimes these are just good points.
Yeah.
It was either QPR or Preston. He he said, look, we'll have to move on from it, but come the end of the season, that could be an important point.
Yep.
And that's the way you've got to look at it. It's with, like I say, with a wider view on what's going on, with one eye on the fact that we've played, 15, 16 games or whatever it is now?
Yeah.
Like, there's a long way to go. There's a long, long way to go, and these points will be crucial. And you've got to look at the teams around us in the table. Burnley are struggling. They're playing poorly. They're eking out points here and there, but they've dropped points. They got beat off Millwall, drew with West Brom 0-0, drew with QPR 0-0, drew with Hull, drew with Preston. But Burnley aren't playing well at the minute, and they're not picking up many points. Leeds, they lost to Millwall and drew with Bristol City away, and just got past Watford, and obviously the game against us. Leeds have dropped points recently. Sheffield United have turned it around a little bit. They had 2 good results the last 2 games, but they lost 2 before that on the bounce.
Yeah.
So look, we aren't the only team. There's 4 teams basically at the minute, give or take. Millwall you could probably throw in there because they've had so many good results recently. But let's just say that 4, we're the only one who haven't lost recently. So yeah, look, it's disappointing, but look at what's going on around us. We're not the only team. We're not the only team losing players. I think Leeds have just, that Radzani, the winger, they've just spent 13 million on. He's out for a while now. So other teams are losing players. Yeah. It's what happens. It happens every year to every team. You go through tough periods. You go through periods where you're not playing well. You go through periods where you're dropping points. You go through periods where you lose key players to injuries and suspensions. It happens. That's why you build a big squad. That's why you plan for more than just the next game. You plan for the full season. It's one of them things. We just got to crack on. What we can't do is allow ourselves to think negatively about all of this. We have to just get on with it. My mentality has to be, get on with it. We're basically cobbling a side together for Millwall, but we've just got to crack on. It's pointless wallowing in it. Crack on, pick a team. We've still got good players to come in. Let's get on with it, see what happens. And then after Millwall, we've got 3 players coming back from suspension and it looks a lot better. And then you've got Samed coming into the team. Hopefully Alexic and Watson have had a bit more exposure at the first team and we're a bit more confident in what they can do. Mayenda coming back after being out for a period. Look, it's not all bad.
Yeah.
Stuff, it won't take long to turn around again.
No, we've definitely, I think, Sunderland fans who've followed us for enough years knows, it's definitely been worse. Top of the league after 15 games and a few injuries. I think I would have taken that. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, look, you look at the teams, there's 2 teams who were unbeaten in the last 6 and West Brom have only won 1 of their last 6 and they're one of them. They drew 5 before that. And Millwall's the other one. Obviously, that's going to be a tough game when we come back. But, they had to turn around because they had a rough start of the season, so they're still outside the playoffs, even though they've won 4 out of the last 6. And you talk about points haul. I mean, we're disappointed with our points haul, but you look, and I think out of the last 6, we're right up there with how many. If you look, at a form guide for the last 6 in terms of how many points we're taking, we're right up there. But people are disappointed, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, if you think about that, people have talked about, and you go back to Roy Keane, to the principle of not celebrating winning the championship because standards should be higher. And it's not a bad thing that in some ways people should go, well, let's expect more because let's raise the standards at the club. So it's not a bad thing. It's just you've got to be level-headed with what happens within the individual games. Like you can't say because of a mad 20 minutes at the end of the game that everything's shit and certain players are shit and they should wear the shirt again, or he should be bombed out because he had a crap 15 minutes or he had a couple of bad touches. Like let's avoid the overreaction because of what we've done so far this season and the fact that we've got a decent stretch being unbeaten. It's not like we're last season where the players, it was just a bit half-hearted, but it's different this season. And you're talking about, we'll go back to injuries. I mean, the strangest things sometimes happens when you've got injuries. Like sometimes you find out a combination was actually better than what you had before, or this player just suddenly just takes his chance, and you go, right, well, nobody can take the shirt off him with the way he's playing. You just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I go back to, different circumstances, but I remember the first season at the Stadium of Light where he started off and Andy Melville, Richard Ord and Martin Scott, I think, was full-back, started the season. And I think Chris Macon might have started right back. And nobody would have batted an eyelid at that being our back four. Richard Ord then got injured, Andy Melville got injured, Martin Scott got injured, and we brought in, Mickey Gray went back to left back, we brought in Darren Williams and Geordie Craddock, and everyone thought, and nobody saw Darren Williams as a centre-half, and we brought Geordie Craddock from Cambridge, and they turned out to be like getting us 90 points and taking us to the playoff final that season. You just don't know how players, I mean, you would like to think all those players have been watching us get top of the league, playing in front of 40,000, chomping at the bit, and you know, when you're top of the league, these players can't bang on the manager's door and say, I deserve a chance, because they've got no right to, because we're top of the league. This is the way you get your chance. And look, you've got, the management will be looking at this. They won't be all doom and gloom. They'll be saying to these players, brilliant, this is your chance. Take it and be better than the person that you're replacing, and don't let him back in the side.
Well, that'll do us. Thank you very much, mate. Appreciate your time and your honesty and your passion.
But, well,
and all those other words that people used to describe Chris Wynn.
And quite rightly, people will be mentioning that. I haven't mentioned Dennis Serkin's goal, by the way.
Oh, I know. I kind of did. I mentioned the fact his wrist didn't affect him, but I watched it back for. I only. Can you remember a strike as clean as that? No. Since I was thinking Carlos Edwards against Burnley was probably the last one.
I mean, I think the keeper might have gotten there, but just thought, no, I'm not touching that.
So much power on it, you know.
But it
would have been strapping his wrist up after he tried to touch it.
He would have been giving him his bandage, saying, "You need this, Mara." But I timed it earlier on, actually, from when he nicked from Hume's tackle when Serkin got the ball, and it was 8 seconds between him first picking up the ball and the ball hitting the back of the net.
Yeah, well, that's why I think he's the best fullback in the league, because he can do everything.
So someone said it the other day. I can't remember, one might have been in the chat or something like that. But someone said, with the way, it might have been you actually, probably was. It's always you. Someone said when the England squad was announced, if he was playing in the Premier League, he'd be in that squad.
I would, because there's such a lack of quality left backs in England at the minute. Yeah. Anyways, that's a conversation for another day. Cheers, mate. Appreciate your time and your honesty, as I said, and your passion. Thank you, everybody who's already bought the Mackem Cookbook, and we've also sold a hell of a lot of the Chris Rigg socks. Proceeds go to the Sunderland Community Soup Kitchen fundraiser this December, which I know we've started a little bit early, but given these are such good items, we want to get them on sale a little bit earlier. So keep your eyes peeled for December's fundraiser coming up too. We'll still be here. We'll be back with a pod before Millwall. We might even chuck another little one in if we get time to do it. A little Q&A pod maybe. We'll get some questions from Twitter, so make sure you watch out for that. And also catch up with everything every day on rokerreport.sbnation.com. All your fan-written articles every single day between 4 and 5 generally, even during international breaks. We find things to talk about, so make sure you keep up with them, and you get to read things Chris writes about and all that, you know. He sounds really happy about it, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks very much. Cheers, Chris. And we'll catch you on the next one.